Into this week's book, which is The Feeling Economy by Roland Rust and Ming-Hui Huang. It's actually the full title of the book is The Feeling Economy: How Artificial Intelligence is Creating an Era of Empathy. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and one of the guests on the podcast spoke to this book and how this book gave them huge insights on how to re-engineer their business, and it perked my interest. And of course, I'm super interested in the role that technology and artificial intelligence and humans will all have in the future, especially where humans fit in. And so this book was exactly what I was looking for. And it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I can tell you the book was exceptionally provocative. It was oftentimes politically tone deaf, and it was political at points, but it brought up really good points and was, I want to say, just provocative again, and we'll get into why it was provocative. When I was preparing to share this book review with you, I did some research and I tried to find other book summaries or book reviews, and almost all book reviews on this book are done from academics or done from colleges in research institutions, which this book has really become a leader in the academic world on what the future is with technology. Really, really interesting. And of course, Roland Rust, the first author, is a distinguished professor at University of Maryland's Robert H. Smith School of Business. He's won a ton of awards. He's a global authority on service marketing, customer equity, and marketing models. He advises a ton of companies like Microsoft, NASA, FedEx, and AT&T. He's won a few lifetime awards, so he's very, very decorated. And Ming also is highly distinguished. He's a professor of international business at National Taiwan University. She is the editor-in-chief of a Journal of Service Research. Her background is in AI. This book was published in 2021. It has sold a gazillion copies, and like I said, has really served as an academic pillar in the thought of how AI fits. Now, let's get into the whole key of this book, and then I'll really break down, because of the 5 or 6 or 7 concepts I'm going to share with the book, each is really important, and then I might get into a little bit of subtopics. But here's the key thing. Here's when they talk about the economy, they really outline there's 3 stages of an economy. There's 3 stages, at least the human economy. And stage 1 was the physical economy, which was during the industrial age. And that's when, men really ruled the economy, because it was all about brawn, about strength, endurance, people working in factories. It was very manual, working in mining, construction, all those type of things. It was brawn. It was a physical economy. But what happened at some point, machines got better at the physical economy than humans. Machines took over in the factories. Machines took over in a lot of ways in mining, even in agriculture, and also in construction, heavy construction. Machines took over. And when you say machines, I mean a tractor is a machine. So it doesn't have to be an AI machine, but a machine nonetheless. And then those machines became more sophisticated and had some intelligence to them, and they became more productive. And so quickly, machines took over the physical economy. That then transitioned into what is called the thinking economy, which is what we're in right now, or the information age, right? And here, what happened is we started to evolve from this physicalness, where men dominated, to this cognitive labor dominated, right? Think computers and augmented analytical tasks, analytical thinking. And what's interesting, the authors of the book argued men had an advantage in this thinking economy because men think differently than women. Men are more adept at spatial thought. It goes into the book, and it's just a different type of thinking that applied itself to the early thinking economy. And so we're currently in the thinking economy. Now this is amazing. This book was written in 2020, and it's predicting what's going to happen in the future. And they thought they were being, revolutionary in some of the claims they were making, but in truth, they undershot it because AI has progressed far faster than they predicted. And so that leads us that we're actually starting to leave the thinking economy way ahead of schedule of what the authors thought. They thought that we'd live in this thinking economy for another 5 or 10 years, but truly machines are already starting to dominate the thinking economy. But the third economy, the one we're headed to, is the feeling economy. And the feeling economy is where emotional intelligence, people-centered work, empathy take over. That becomes the valued skill set. So we go from physical to thinking to feeling. The feeling economy, and what the authors argue in this book, is that humans are going to have an advantage over technology, over AI, most likely for the next decade or so, because we're better at feeling, and that's what's going to sell well or well in the economy. And so what we as humans need to do is we need to circle and just solely focus on the feeling economy. Now, we need to have a sub-base of the thinking economy. Excuse me. So we need to be competent, knowledgeable in our analytics. We need to know how to use AI, use technology, but we layer on top of it that human feeling. And what's really interesting in the feeling economy is the authors think that women have an advantage in the feeling economy because they're better at empathy, they're better at sensitivity and emotion, better at connecting and relationships. And so that women will have the advantage in the next economy. And so that's kind of the base of the book. Very interesting. I'm going to share some other key thoughts about that. But let me just kind of go through some of the key concepts by chapter. I'll go really quick, I promise. So we talked about how AI is reshaping economies as we now drift into the feeling economy. And that and one of the things when you think about the feeling economy, think about this. There's a whole chapter on this. It's chapter 5, is the age of emoji. And just think about it as computers and technology and AI took over the thinking economy, took over communication. With it, it lost some of the emotion and connection. So from that was the birth of emojis, right? Emojis came along so that you could add added emotion to a communication, right? Isn't that amazing? And so that was a first shift from thinking, from communication, from information to emotionally driven communication, right? Isn't that really interesting? And then, in the future, what the authors think that our role as humans will have jobs that emphasize empathy, human connection. Type of jobs that will thrive are sales, healthcare, counseling, leadership, and education. And they use an example in this, like, so today, a financial analyst mostly spends their time, and same thing with like a financial advisor, spends their time analyzing data, giving the best strategy, right? But in the future, those people are not going to spend time doing those calculations at all, because AI is going to do that. Instead, they focus on the client relationship and how the client is feeling. That's an example of shifting from the thinking economy to the feeling economy. In this book, the book gets really political. The authors obviously are not Donald Trump fans. So if you're a Donald Trump fan, you may or may not want to read the book. They have a few chapters where they're overtly, criticizing, Donald Trump's thinking, specifically around tariffs and bringing manufacturing back to the United States. They and in this, and I don't, it doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum, but it's very interesting. And in this, what they're saying though is society is evolving into politics being about emotional narratives, right? It's about emotion now. And they use Donald Trump's election versus Hillary Clinton, where they said Hillary was the superior intellectual human being, had better solutions, was more thought out, was just a much brighter person. But Trump just had this base emotional connection, and that's what people want today. That as we go into the feeling economy, the people are now aligning with the feeling that politicians give them. That's most important. And so this comes up in a couple of different chapters. It could be offensive depending on where you stand in the spectrum. Like I said, the book is provocative. The book also makes all sorts of claims about different types of nationalities, different types of people grouping. And I don't think it does it in any bias method. They're trying to be objective, but they're not afraid of saying impolitical things or impolite things. And so they also say education has to change. The focus on STEM education is worthless tomorrow because computers will do the STEM work. Instead, education needs to pivot into teaching emotional intelligence, how to collaborate, relationships, and then how to use AI to fulfill the STEM portions of it. It was really interesting, the consumer part, and this is the part that caught my attention when I was listening to a podcast with consumers, and this is really interesting. In the future, it will no longer be about data-driven service to customers. Like right now we say, hey, data driven. Like let's be data driven to be relevant, to be timely, to proactively serve our customers. But in the future, what you need to have instead is tailored emotional experiences. So it's kind of like where data driven says, hey, I need to meet my client where they are, when they need me, proactively, being timely, being relevant, right? That's data driven. But emotional driven is, look, I need to give what my customer wants is individualized, tailored emotional experiences for them, not just some mass communication, some mass thing. They want my product, which is a service I give them, to be 100% individualized and customized to them. And the book argues you can do it with AI, but humans' value is being able to deliver that emotional, that completely tailored emotion experience. That's what's going to make us different than machines. The book goes into how managers just need to evolve into teaching emotional leadership, and also helping their workers integrate AI into the workplace and still allowing them to be humans, essentially. There's a whole chapter on the moral, ethical, and governance implications of AI, which I'm not going to go into. There's a whole bunch of, it touches on a few chapters on artificial creativity. I'm going to bring this up because we already get to something called singularity. But what it's saying is AI now is encroaching into creative fields, and that musicians have been using AI in synthesizers for like 40 years, and more all musicians use more and more technology and AI. And today, of course, we know AI can create new music and new movies and new images. The problem with those is it doesn't have the human emotion yet. So it's creative, but it's creative in the absence of having the related emotion to it. And so we still have an advantage in creativity because we can attach the emotional feeling to it that AI can't. However, one of the things in the book they argue, and this, like I said, the book is really interesting. It can be controversial. They argue, or they hypothesize at one point, once AI gets better at all three economies over humans, meaning they're better at the physical, they're better at the thinking, and they're better at the feeling. And the book argues, look, AI is going to be better at feeling than humans at some point. They're going to teach the machines how to understand people's emotions. The machine will never feel the emotion, but the machine will know how to react and foster and fuel it and support it, and will be better at emotional connection than humans are. But once the machine achieves superiority at all three of those different economies, physical, thinking, emotional, it has achieved singularities where humans are no longer needed. Really fascinating part now. Kind of trippy. I didn't spend a ton of time on this. The authors didn't spend a ton of time on it, just a little bit, probably about 5% of the book. But what happens when AI surpasses humans in all domains? And it lists all these possible things. It's really fascinating. All these possible outcomes when the machines are better than humans at everything. And the question becomes at that point, are the machines there to serve humans? Or are humans there to serve the machines? Or do the machines even need humans at that point? Really a trippy, interesting conversation. And so from that, then we can kind of go back to some of the other key points in the book. So we already talked about the roles of growing and thinking, how feeling tasks are the next human frontier. We've talked about that. We also have talked about the singularity, which is really kind of trippy. Now, some of the quotes from the book, as we wrap this up, here that I kind of like. I took a handful of quotes I liked. AI is not taking away work; it's changing what human work is. Okay, so AI is going to take all the work that we do now, and then it's up for us as humans to figure out what our work will be in the future. Kind of convoluted, but not necessarily off. Next is humans' best defense against AI may lie in the becoming better at being human. Absolutely true, everybody. Absolutely true. The way we compete with technology is being more human. More human means a couple things. One, slow down, right? Because technology, AI, is about speeding up. To be human right now means to slow down, right? And to be human, you have to be able to connect in ways a machine can't connect. Let me give you an example. This is my example. I tell people all the time, you want to beat AI, all you have to do is ask questions like this. How do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? How do you feel about your mortgage? How do you feel about buying this house? How do you feel about the process? See, if the machine asks the person that right now, the person is going to be offended, going, "You're a machine. You wouldn't know you can't even understand my answer." But if a human says that, that's being exceptionally human. That's what we add to the transaction. That's what we add to the whole relationship, is that human ability. And so we just need to slow down and make sure we're being human. Another quote is, "Emotional intelligence will be the most valuable skill in the economy of the future." Going on to another quote, "We're moving from an economy of information to an economy of empathy." And then this is an interesting quote, and this is going back to women. "The countries that are most women friendly have several times the GDP of the average country." And so, as what the authors argue is, as we evolve from a feeling economy or a thinking economy to a feeling economy, the countries that already prominently support women in the workplace are far more ahead with GDP, far more advanced than the countries that don't, because women are stronger in those things. So really, really interesting book. I don't know if I agreed with it all. I certainly was provocative. It made me think a ton. I enjoyed it because it made me think a ton. I wouldn't say the authors were off, and this book was now written 4 years ago, which in technology world is not even dog years. It's like 100 years ago. They were mostly right about the things they said. It's amazing that they were tone deaf on political correctness, but I was okay with that. And it's just interesting to see where we're going to go with all this technology. I recommend the book. It's a bit lengthy. Here, let me show you a picture of the book. It's a little lengthy. I think it was, I want to say it was almost 10 or 11 hours on Audible. And it was very dry, but man, it was so fascinating. I couldn't help but listen to the whole thing. I look forward to doing this review. I recommend it. Check it out. See where you might fit in the future with technology. And you may disagree with the whole book. You may say, hey, AI is never going to replace me. Technology is never going to replace me. Or you might be scared to death and you're trying to find a place. Hey, one of the other things I want to mention too, one of the concepts in the book is that when AI can do everything, what role do humans have? But a byproduct of that is, as AI starts to do all the work and create all the income, how do regular people survive? Like how do you have an income if machines are doing all the work? And that's when you start to get into universal basic incomes, which I know I've talked about. That's where every citizen gets paid an income for minimum living requirements, because the machines are creating so much value that they're taking the income the machines generate, and they're redistributing for humans. And at that point, humans' only role are to be more human, to enjoy their lives, that they're going to become more better poets, or become better musicians, they're going to become authors, they're going to do all these human things, so they no longer have to go to work every day. And so as time progresses, the average work week is going to shrink, and then this basic universal life wage is going to come into effect. Now, I know some countries have talked about this already. It's a very interesting concept, especially when you think about technology taking over all these things. Something to think about. It seems so far-fetched, but is it really far-fetched? And then the other thing is, there's going to be a greater wealth disparity in the world, because what's going to make money in the future, and back when you go back to the physical economy, right? What made money is employees. Even in the thinking economy, what made money were employees. In the economy driven by AI and technology, what makes money is capital. And so capital attracts all the money. And when we say capital, the people that own the machines, the companies that own the machines, and we're already seeing this, right? The capital that own or control the technology, AI, are going to get most of the income, most of the revenue, right? And that's why you think about universal basic wages. But there's going to be greater income disparity than ever, and governments are going to have to figure out what that means, right? Because if we're not needed and machines are doing everything, machines are owned by other people, and all the revenue are going to all those other people, it is a really interesting concept. So it's a great book. if you get a chance to listen to it, figure out how you can integrate it into what you do. If you're mortgage or real estate, that is, how do you become more and more human? How do you become more and more emotionally linked? How do you create unique emotional journeys for your clients that are customized, individualized for them? Think about those things. Start working on those now, because the future is coming faster than ever. Check me out on my socials if you get a chance. I do stuff like this all the time, whether it's book reviews or articles or hopefully things of value. I appreciate you giving me some time. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you again soon.